Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Welcome back. We're reading from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Madhya Lila. We're in chapter 22, the process of devotional service. We made it all the way to verse number 134. I'll repeat number 133. The power of these five principles is very wonderful and difficult to understand. Even without faith in them, a person who is offenseless can awaken his dormant love of Krishna simply by being a little connected with them. This verse is also found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-2-238. When one is firmly fixed in devotional service, whether he executes one or many processes of devotional service, the waves of love of Godhead will awaken. Purport: the 9 processes of devotional service are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. There are many devotees who execute only one of the 9 processes of devotional service. Nonetheless, they get ultimate success. Devotees like Maharaj Ambarish execute all 9 items, and they also get ultimate success. Shri Vishnu Shravane Parikshita Bhavad Vayasaki Kirtane Pralada Smarane Tarangri Bhajane Lakshmi Pritu Pujane Akrurastvabi Bandhane Kapipatir Dasyeta Sakyarjuna Sarva Swatmani Vedane Balirabud Krishnaptir Esham Para. Maharaj Parikshit attained the highest perfection, shelter at Lord Krishna's lotus feet, simply by hearing about Lord Vishnu. Shukadeva Gosvāmī attained perfection simply by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj attained perfection by remembering the Lord. The goddess of fortune attained perfection by massaging the transcendental legs of Mahavishnu. Maharaj Prithu attained perfection by worshipping the deity. And Akrura attained perfection by offering prayers unto the Lord. Vajrangaji, Hanuman, attained perfection by rendering service to Lord Ramachandra. And Arjuna attained perfection simply by being Krishna's friend. Bali Maharaj attained perfection by dedicating everything to the lotus feet of Krishna. This verse appears in the Padyavali and the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Maharaj Ambarish always engaged his mind at the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His hands in cleansing and washing the Lord's temple. His ears in hearing topics about the Supreme Lord. His eyes in seeing the deity of Lord Krishna in the temple. His body in embracing Vaishnavas or touching their lotus feet. His nostrils in smelling the aroma of the tulsi leaves offered to Krishna's lotus feet. His tongue in tasting food offered to Krishna. His legs in going to places of pilgrimage like Vrindavan and Mathura or to the Lord's temple. His head in touching the lotus feet of the Lord and offering him obeisances. And his desires in serving the Lord faithfully. In this way, Maharaj Ambarish engaged his senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As a result, he awakened his dormant loving propensity for the Lord's service. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.18-20. If a person gives up all material desires and completely engages in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, as enjoined in the revealed scriptures, he is never indebted to the demigods, sages, or forefathers. After birth, every man is indebted in so many ways. He is indebted to the demigods for their supplying necessities like air, light, water. When he takes advantage of the Vedic literatures, one becomes indebted to great sages like Vyasadeva, Narada, Devala, and Asita. When one takes birth in a particular family, he becomes indebted to his forefathers. We are even indebted to common living entities like cows from whom we take milk. Because we accept service from so many animals, we become indebted. However, if one is completely engaged in the Lord's devotional service, he is absolved of all debts. This is confirmed in the following verse, quoted from Srimad Bhagavatam. Devarshi bhutab nandrinam pitrinam aking karunayam ranicharajan sarvatmanaya sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam parihrittakartam. One who has given up all material duties and taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Mukunda, who gives all shelter, who gives shelter to all, is not indebted to the demigods, great sages, ordinary living beings, relatives, friends, mankind, or even his forefathers who have passed away. It is said, quote, by offering oblations with ghee, one satisfies the demigods. By studying the Vedas, one performs Brahma Yajna, which satisfies the great sages. Offering libations of water before one's forefathers is called Pitri Yajna. By offering tribute, one performs Bhuta Yajna. By properly receiving guests, one performs Nri Yajna. These are the 5 yajnas that liquidate the 5 kinds of indebtedness. Indebtedness to the demigods, great sages, forefathers, living entities, and common men. Therefore, one has to perform these 5 kinds of yajnas. But when one takes to the Sankirtan Yajna, to chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, one does not have to perform any other yajna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada Muni made a statement about the systematic performance of Bhagavata Dharma in connection with statements previously made by the 9 Yogendras before Maharaj Nimi. The sage Karabachana Rishi explained the 4 incarnations of the 4 yugas. And at the end, in this text, in this verse, 141, he explained the position of Krishna's pure devotees and how he is absolved from all debts. He explained the position of Krishna's pure devotee and how he is absolved from all debts, of all debts. Although the pure devotee does not follow all the regular principles of varnashrama, he worships the lotus feet of Krishna. Therefore, he naturally has no tendency to commit sin. The varnashrama institution is planned in such a way that one will not commit sinful activities. Material existence continues due to sinful activity. When one acts sinfully in this life, he gets a suitable body for the next life. When one acts sinfully, he takes on another material body. In this way, one is continuously under the influence of material nature. Purusha prakriti stohi punkte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sarasadyoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the 3 modes of material nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. Due to our association with the modes of material nature, we get different types of bodies, good and bad. One cannot be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, known as transmigration of the soul, unless one is completely freed from all sinful activities. The best process, therefore, is to take to Krishna consciousness. One cannot take to Krishna consciousness without being freed from all sinful activities. Naturally, one who is very serious about Krishna consciousness is freed from all sinful activity. Consequently, a devotee is never inclined to commit sins. If one is pressured by the law or obligations to give up sinful activity, one cannot do so. However, if one takes to Krishna consciousness, he can very easily give up all sinful activity. This is confirmed herein. That's poignant, that even if he's pressured by the law to give up sinful activity, he can't do it. But if he's fully engaged in the Lord's service, he can do it. If, however, a devotee accidentally becomes involved in a sinful activity, Krishna purifies him. He does not have to undergo the regulative form of atonement. Purport: Krishna purifies from within as the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within the heart. This is described in the following verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.42. Sapadamulam bhajata priyasya tyaktanya bhavasya hari pareshaha vikarmayach patitam katanjid tunati sarvam ririsannivishta. One who has given up everything and taken full shelter at the lotus feet of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very dear to Krishna. If he is involved in some sinful activity by accident, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated within everyone's heart, removes his sins without difficulty. The path of speculative knowledge and renunciation is not essential for devotional service. Indeed, good qualities such as nonviolence and control of the mind and senses automatically accompany a devotee of Lord Krishna. Sometimes a neophyte devotee or ordinary person thinks highly of speculative knowledge, austerity, penances, and renunciation, thinking them the only path for advancement in devotional service. Actually, this is not a fact. The path of knowledge, mystic yoga, and renunciation has nothing to do with the pure soul. When one is temporarily in the material world, such processes may help a little, but they are not necessary for a pure devotee of Krishna. In the material world, such activities end in material enjoyment or merging into the effulgence of the Supreme. They have nothing to do with the eternal loving service of the Lord. If one abandons speculative knowledge and simply engages in devotional service, he has attained perfection. He has attained his perfection. The devotee has no need for speculative knowledge, pious activity, or mystic yoga. All of these are automatically present when one renders the Lord transcendental loving service. For one who is fully engaged in my devotional service, whose mind is fixed on me in bhakti yoga, the path of speculative knowledge and dry renunciation is not very beneficial. Purport: the path of devotional service is always independent of other activity. The path of speculative knowledge and mystic yoga may be a little beneficial in the beginning, but it cannot be considered part of devotional service. This verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.31, was spoken by Lord Krishna when he was speaking to Uddhava before his departure from this material world. These are important instructions given directly by Lord Krishna. Sri Uddhava asked the Lord about the two kinds of instructions given in the Vedas. One instruction is called Pravritti Marg and the other is called Nivritti Marg. These are directions for enjoying the material world according to regulative principles and then giving up the material world for higher spiritual understanding. Sometimes one does not know whether to practice speculative knowledge and mystic yoga for advancement in spiritual knowledge. Krishna explains to Uddhava that the mechanical process of speculative knowledge and yoga is not necessary for advancing in devotional service. Devotional service is completely spiritual. It has nothing to do with material things. It is awakened by hearing and chanting in the association of devotees. Because devotional service is always transcendental, it has nothing to do with material activity. O hunter, good qualities like nonviolence, which you have developed, are not very astonishing, for those who are engaged in the Lord's devotional service are never inclined to give pain to others because of envy. This is a quotation from the Skanda Purana. It was spoken by Narada Muni to the reformed hunter Mrigarari. My dear Sanātana, I have now in detail described devotional service according to regulative principles. Now hear from me about spontaneous devotional service and its characteristics. The original inhabitants of Vrindavan are attached to Krishna spontaneously in devotional service. Nothing can compare to such spontaneous devotional service, which is called Ragatmika Bhakti. When a devotee follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavan, his devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti. In his Bhakti Sandarbha, Jiva Gosvāmī states, when a pure devotee follows the footsteps of a devotee in Vrindavan, he develops Raganuga Bhakti. When one becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his natural inclination to love is fully absorbed in thoughts of the Lord. That is called transcendental attachment, and devotional service according to that attachment is called ragatmika, or spontaneous devotional service. This verse is found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The primary characteristic of spontaneous love is deep attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Absorption in thought of Him is a marginal characteristic. Thus, devotional service, which consists of raga, deep attachment, is called ragatmika, spontaneous loving service. If a devotee covets such a position, he is considered to be most fortunate. If one follows in the footsteps of the inhabitants of Vrindavan out of such transcendental covetousness, he does not care for the injunctions of reasonings of Shastra. This is the way of spontaneous love. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura says that a devotee is attracted by the service of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, namely the cowherd men, Maharaj Nanda, Mother Yashoda, Radharani, the gopis, and the cows and calves. An advanced devotee is attracted by the service rendered by an eternal servitor of the Lord. This attraction is called spontaneous attraction. Technically, it is called Swarup Upalabdhi. This stage is not achieved in the beginning. In the beginning, one has to render service strictly according to the regulative principles set forth by the revealed scriptures and the spiritual master. By continuously rendering service through the process of Vaidhi Bhakti, one's natural inclination is gradually awakened. That is called spontaneous attraction or Raganuga Bhakti. An advanced devotee situated on the platform of spontaneity is already very expert in shastric instruction, logic and argument. When he comes to the point of eternal love for Krishna, no one can deviate him from that position, neither by argument nor by shastric evidence. An advanced devotee has realized his eternal relationship with the Lord, and consequently he does not accept the logic and arguments of others. Such an advanced devotee has nothing to do with these sahajiyās, who manufacture their own way and commit sins by indulging in illicit sex, intoxication and gambling, if not meat-eating. Sometimes the sahajiyās imitate advanced devotees and live in their own whimsical way, avoiding the principles set down in the revealed scriptures. Unless one follows the 6 Gosvāmīs, Śrī Rūpa, Sanātana, Raghunātha Bhaṭṭa, Śrī Jīva, Gopāla Bhaṭṭa and Raghunāthas, one cannot be a bona fide spontaneous lover of Krishna. In this connection, Śrīla Narottama Ṭhākura says, rūpa-raghunātha-pade haibe akati, kabe hama bujhaba she jugalapiriti. The sahajiyās' understanding of the love affairs between Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa is not bona fide because they do not follow the principles laid down by the Gosvāmīs. Their illicit connection and their imitation of the dress of Rūpa Gosvāmī, as well as their avoidance of the prescribed methods of revealed scriptures, lead them to the lowest regions of hell. These imitative sahajiyās are cheated and unfortunate. They are not equal to advanced devotees, paramahamsas. Debachis and paramahamsas are not on the same level. Devotional service and spontaneous love is vividly expressed and manifested by the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Devotional service that accords with their devotional service is called Raganuga Bhakti, or devotional service following in the wake of spontaneous loving service. When an advanced realized devotee hears about the affairs of the devotees of Vrindavan in the mellows of Shanta, Dāsa, Sakhya, Vatsalya and Madhurya, he becomes inclined in one of these ways, and his intelligence becomes attracted. Indeed, he begins to covet that particular type of devotion. When such covetousness is awakened, one's intelligence no longer depends on the instructions of Shastra or the logic or on logic and argument. There are 2 processes by which one may execute this Raganuga Bhakti, external and internal. When self-realized, the advanced devotee externally remains like a neophyte and executes all these shastra conjunctions, especially those concerning hearing and chanting. But within his mind, in his original purified, self-realized position, he serves Krishna in Vrindavan in his particular way. He serves Krishna 24 hours a day, all day and night. Seva saraka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tadbhava lipsuna karya rajo lokanusarata. The advanced devotee who is inclined to spontaneous loving service should follow the activities of a particular associate of Krishna's in Vrindavan. He should execute service externally as a regulative devotee, as well as internally from his self-realized position. Thus he should perform devotional service both externally and internally. From Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Actually, the inhabitants of Vrindavan are very dear to Krishna. If one wants to engage in spontaneous loving service, he must follow the inhabitants of Vrindavan and consequently engage in devotional service within his mind. The devotee should always think of Krishna within himself and should choose a very dear devotee who is a servitor of Krishna in Vrindavan. One should constantly engage in topics about that servitor and his loving relationship with Krishna, and one should live in Vrindavan. If one is physically unable to go to Vrindavan, he should mentally live there. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Krishna has many types of devotees. Some are servants, some are friends, some are parents, and some are conjugal lovers. Devotees who are situated in one of these attitudes of spontaneous love, according to their choice, are considered to be on the path of spontaneous loving service. My dear mother, Devahuti, O emblem of peace, my weapon, the disc of time, never vanquishes those for whom I am very dear, for whom I am the supersoul, son, friend, spiritual master, well-wisher, worshipful deity and desired goal. Since the devotees are always attached to me, they are never vanquished by the agents of time. Nakari chinmat para shanta rupe, nang shanti no me nimisho lady heti, ye shamaham priya atma sutascha, saka guru surido daivam ishtam. This was spoken by Kapiladev to his mother Devahuti and is recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25-38. Kapiladev instructed his mother in Sankhya Yoga, but the importance of Bhakti Yoga is mentioned here. Later, Sankhya Yoga was imitated by atheists, whose system was founded by a different Kapiladev, Rishi Kapiladev. Let me offer my respectful obeisances again and again to those who always eagerly meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a husband, son, friend, brother, father, or intimate friend. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. If one engages in spontaneous loving service to the Lord, his affection for the lotus feet of Krishna gradually increases. In the seed of affection, there is attachment which goes by two names, Rati and Bhava. The Supreme Personality of Godhead comes under the control of such attachment. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura comments on this verse. Externally, a devotee performs all the items of devotional service in 9 different ways, beginning with Shravana and Kirtana. And within his mind, he always thinks of his eternal relationship with Krishna and follows in the footsteps of the devotees in Vrindavan. If one engages himself in the service of Rādhā and Kṛṣṇa in this way, he can transcend the regulative principles enjoined in the Shastras and, through his spiritual master, fully engage in rendering spontaneous love to Krishna. In this way, he attains affection at the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna actually comes under the control of such spontaneous feelings, and ultimately one can attain association with the Lord. That by which one can attain loving service to the Lord I have described in detail as the execution of devotional service called abhideya. My dear Sanātana, I have briefly described the process of devotional service in practice, which is the means for obtaining love of Krishna. It cannot be described broadly. Whoever hears this description of the process of practical devotional service very soon attains shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna in love and affection. Praying to the lotus feet of Śrī Rūpa and Raghunātha, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, 22nd chapter, describing the execution of devotional service. Bravo! Ballo, ballo. Bravissimo. Jai, jai. Danya, danya. Hare, hare.